I don't know if you know what that is, but this Google says I know things, and everybody believes that. I'm also a Node.js Foundation member on the security working group, so if you ever reported a vulnerability, which just are very low, because they are not something many, I will actually be probably reviewing it, or did review it in the past, because I have now too many kids to do any of that. My 2023 technology radar, it's kind of something that, what will I be investing time into at the moment is AWS, for sure, Kubernetes, which that's why we're here. And then Node and Golang, yes, I know what Rust is. I know everybody is like, with Rust, like ChatGPT or similar, but I kind of like it, but I think it's, it's over the kind of, oh my God, you should learn Rust, and then we're going to go into nah. So we don't want that. So yeah, I'm staying put with Node and Golang. Do one thing I'm doing well, even though I don't, but yeah. Cool. If you want to spare some money, I have to feed a large family of 2 kids. You can buy one of my books, or you can also come to me afterwards and I will send you a copy PDF for free. And that's okay. You don't need to pay for it. And why GitOps? Okay, isn't life complicated enough with Kubernetes? I don't know if you ever tried to run your own Kubernetes cluster, but I tried a couple of times and I wanted to quit IT altogether. So yeah, and then once you learn Kubernetes, well, that's actually not true because you don't get paid in cash anymore, you get data bank transfer. But you know how things are going, like nobody has that amount of money at home. At least I don't. If you do, please tell me how you do. But yeah, I mean, life is quite complicated with Kubernetes, and that's why I think GitOps, even though it's not starting to, take off, it's going to be very interesting over the next few years. But first of all, what is GitOps? Super funny thing, today we were in the office and we were talking about what is ArgoCD, which is what I want to show you today. And somebody in my company asked ChatGPT-4, which is the thing to do in 2023, what is ArgoCD, explain it like a 5. And then it says something like, how was it? Like you have like a Lego to build, but you have the instructions, look at the instructions, the Lego is built all together, like you don't need to do anything. That's exactly what GitOps is. Like, who here doesn't use Git at work? Who doesn't? You don't? Well, you don't.
I'm a manager, so.
I'm a recruiter.
In both cases make sense, but everybody else uses Git, right? So everybody knows Git well or very well, depending on how much you think you know that you don't know. But in reality is GitOps gives you the ability to control the state of your Kubernetes cluster from a Git repository. That sounds very cool, right? And most of you will be like, well, isn't that what we are doing since the beginning of the time? Isn't that CI/CD, like you would think? It actually isn't, and let me explain you why. So this is CI/CD. You commit something into Git. The resolution of this is terrible, but it's okay. And then you kick off GitHub Actions. Okay? This GitHub Actions is going to build an artifact, which is going to be put somewhere. And then you have a number of steps that will change the state of your servers, or when we are not in the 20th century, but the 21st, you will build a Docker container and push it somewhere, okay? What are the chances of you building a container twice and ending up in the same artifact? Have you thought about that? Like you have one Node.js container, just for the sake of Node.js. You build it twice. Do you think it's going to be the same container? Like
No.
you build it now, and why not?
Because images are immutable.
Woo! You came to my classes. Yeah. Well, actually, there are a few problems. The first problem is the dependency management in Node.js. It's usually not done well. Okay, so you have your package log, and that helps, but the trees are usually non-deterministic if you don't use package log well. So if you npm install today, and most of you will be doing npm install instead of npm ci, which actually makes the build non-deterministic. And you do npm install tomorrow, the tree is going to be different. So your container is going to be inherently different. So you don't want that, okay? So you build your container, push it into an ECR or whatever GitHub repository, sorry, not GitHub, Docker repository you use, and then deploy it into your Kubernetes cluster, deploy it into your, like wherever you want to deploy it, and that's how we make money, that's how we pay the mortgage, and we buy things, and things like that. But what is the problem with that? CI/CD pipeline, it's never declarative, okay? So you have a number of instructions, one after another, and you have to execute them in order, or a machine has to execute them in order, with precision, because if not, things go south very quickly. And we all have been there where CI/CD work, why my servers are down? And then you did something silly that you didn't realize, and that's a problem. It's great for building artifacts. For people who has been here before, that's the CI part. It's horrible for the CD part, because you have to configure credentials, you have to configure, I'm pointing to this Docker, I'm pointing to this React build and things like that. And now I have a few questions here for you. Like, how long does it take you to figure out what happened when a deployment goes wrong? Have you been there recently? You deploy something, the pipeline is green, the application is down. How do you go about it? It's too late to start a sleep watch already, so you should have done that before. But if you have some sort of observability, you go into observability and see exactly what happened, right? How long does it take you to figure out, in Kubernetes, this is Kubernetes, okay? What's going on in a Helm chart of your application, what has failed? It probably takes you an hour or so, right? First, half an hour of panic, then you go and make coffee, come back, start applying for jobs, and then you search the logs, the events, everything, right? Now, second question is, when was the last time that your rollback procedure was tested? Never, right?
Yeah.
There's a procedure?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, roll back to the previous commit and then deploy. What about the database? What about the stateful components of your architecture? Like, what if you have messages in a queue that are expected to be in a schema, and then your previous version doesn't process them? Like, we all been there at 4 a.m. at some point. And how many steps do you need to execute to fix a problem? Like, imagine you just take down. We work in financial services on an account, so you took down a bank. How many steps do you need to execute to bring the bank back? You don't want to even go, right? Because that's not a great situation. It's probably just pull the internet cable better and start working in, I don't know, whatever, but not in IT. So the thing is, once you have been exposed to CI/CD for a long time, this is something I repeat myself so often, and I think I need to start checking this phrase in my talks. When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, okay? And that happens to me all the time. Like, this thing is moving, nail, hammer, pom, pom, pom. This thing is not sticky, nail, hammer, pom, pom, pom. That's the CI/CD in the modern world, okay? Now, I have one interesting question for you all. This is like a game, okay? My students that are here, I see a few of you. Don't answer, okay? You have a deployment that you need to execute manually, and you have 3 steps. The step number 1 has 90% of chances of success. The step number 2, 85, and the step number 3, 80. What is the overall probability of success of the whole deployment procedure? Come on, somebody.
50%?
Oh, come on. Don't spoil me. What is it? Come on. Is it over 70%? Below 70%? Below.
Below 70%.
It's below 70%, right? If you show those numbers to somebody that doesn't know maths, will be like, yeah, push it, push it. It never works, okay? Now, this is one way of presenting this question, but what if I tell you that this, actually I forgot the slide that shows the number, but this is 62.7%. So what if I tell you instead of this, that you only have every 10 times that you deploy your application, 5 of them or 6 of them, 4 of them are going to fail. This guy is not going to be very happy, right? Especially if you work in critical systems like healthcare, banking, or, well, every system is critical. Some are more critical than others, but yeah, like that's a bad idea, okay? So you don't want to execute manual steps, or you want your manual steps to be above 99.9%, which is almost impossible, because, one day you wake up sleeping 3 hours, and that 99% goes down to 50% very quickly, and you don't even realize, okay? So, ArgoCD to the rescue. Your Kubernetes manifests are declarative. Everybody here has seen Kubernetes, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Who didn't? keep it that way. Yeah, keep it that way. Your build artifacts should be configurable. So we go back to, not here, but here, here. So these are steps, like, you build an artifact, push it somewhere, and then you inject the configuration of your system to this artifact, with one exception, up to last year, React React had something which was terrible, which is environment variables at compile time. So when you transpile your build in React, you inject environment variables that are not really environment variables, they are runtime variables that get bundled in the bundle, and you need to rebuild them to change an environment variable. So yeah, that has gone away, but still not there yet. So your build artifact should be configurable. Your software, Dave, believe me or not, is deterministic. Okay? So that means if your software is doing silly things, it's having bugs, it's not that it does whatever it wants, it's that it does whatever you told the software to do. But whatever you told the software to do is probably wrong. Okay? So you need to make sure that, or you need to know that your software is always deterministic. Even if you do random numbers, the random numbers are not really that random. Okay? Why your pipelines are not making use of it? That's a question I have. Like Kubernetes, this supermassive complex artifact is designed to deploy a state straight from text files, from an API call, into a running runtime, declaratively. So you have, I am a container, or I am a deployment which has 3 replicas, and I expose the port 80. Why do you have a long set of steps to do many things that you should be doing? So, now, this is something I got not to do anymore, which is a live demo, okay? And I will show you the commit date. It was done last night at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m., something like that. So I'm not sure what's going to go wrong, but let's try, okay? First of all, what is ArgoCD? Okay, so I have here in my computer, Docker desktop, okay? Before you ask, yes, I am using Windows. I'm not sick, I'm fine. Okay? It works fairly well, and I will show you why. So I have a simple Kubernetes cluster. Well, simple Kubernetes cluster, I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, Docker desktop, go into settings, enable Kubernetes, and you get a Kubernetes cluster for free. Then what you do is, with the terminal app, kubectl get pods, and you get all the pods running on my system, okay? That's the proof. We have a simple Kubernetes cluster, which is just there. It was spawned 18 hours ago, so that's like 1 minute, right? But yeah. Okay, so now what we do first is we create a namespace. So the namespace, for those who don't know, it's like a folder in Kubernetes. Okay, that folder contains group resources, and you can deploy things per folder. So in Kubernetes now we have like a few namespaces by default. So the one I just created is called ArgoCD. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install ArgoCD. 1 second. So every time you want to learn a new technology, well, now I'm actually afraid to say that because all of you will go into ChatGPT and ask them. But if you search technology quick start, so for example, ArgoCD quick start or getting started, you get into the page on, really 3 or 4 steps on how to run a technology. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install ArgoCD in my cluster. And that those, fancy numbers coming down. Now what's happening is that my computer is installing ArgoCD. Now one thing I didn't notice is how long it's going to take the content. Oh, I have the containers on my machine, so I don't need to pull 20 gigabytes of data in a 3 megabit connection. So ArgoCD is now starting. Okay, all the pods, which at the end of the day are containers or groups of containers, are running and they're getting ready. So that means once all of them are running, I have ArgoCD deployed on my computer. What is ArgoCD? Because we like pictures, I'm going to show you exactly what ArgoCD is with a website. So we have a service here, and then what we do is kubectl port forward SBC from namespace, and then the port is 8080 to the port 443. Okay, I'm forwarding ports from my computer into ArgoCD. So right now I have a port open in my computer, which is talking to ArgoCD. It's saying not secure. Whenever you see a certificate that says not secure, all the things you need to do is advance, proceed. Okay? Just kidding. It's a self-signed certificate, so don't do that ever unless you know what you're doing, which might not be the case now. The username is always admin, I know that, and the password gets generated on every installation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get the password. So I have the initial admin secret. It's actually secret. What am I missing?
Initial.
Oh yeah. Excuse me, English is not my first. Okay. I get the YAML. All the secrets in Kubernetes are base 64 encode, so the thing I need to do now is echo and then get the password. And now pass it into base 64 code. That's my password. It seems as horrible as the original one. And log into it. That's it. Okay. This is ArgoCD. I have the dashboard, which tells me how many applications do I have deployed in my cluster. At the moment, there are none. Okay. I have no applications deployed in my cluster. It's empty. By application, I will show you in a second what I mean, but they're doing something very clever which can be exploited to the extreme, which is why I almost got fired from my previous job. Right now I have learned a hard lesson, which is keep things simple. But now what we're going to do is we're going to deploy an application. Okay? This application is a very sophisticated app that I built last night at 1 AM. And you can see it here. It's a Node.js application. Which it returns, it works into a hello world request. Okay, that's what everybody has done at some point about 2 million times. So for the same thing, I actually built a Docker container on Node 18. Now, question for you: does this make sense? Node 18, or will you do Node and specify the version?
Specify the version.
Why?
In case they update that version, whenever you pull it again, you're going to pull just whatever.
That's a good one. But because I'm a cowboy, I just go into the major version and see if it breaks the day of the demo. I don't see this breaking, to be honest. Okay. So what I did yesterday is, because I knew it was going to be tight on time, one second. I actually built the Docker image upfront, okay? So what we're having now is my index.mjs. It's packed in a Docker file, in a Docker image that it's actually saved now on the Docker engine of my computer, okay? I'm not going to use it in a registry because I don't want to be looking at the screen while we push 2 gigabytes of data through a shared connection. So right now, I have the application. Running on my computer, okay? You can see it's HTTP, all the headers and all the goodness, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to Argo, deploy this in my cluster. So first of all, I need to go and so it's here, dotCon. Go. Okay, so I'm going to ArgoCD, create a new application. The application is called dotCon. Project name, I never got away on what project name means. I think there are ways of configuring different projects in ArgoCD. Never seen that working, never done it myself. I don't even know what this configuration is, so I always put default. Sync policy, I'm gonna, because I'm adventurous today, well, I'm not really adventurous, I'm gonna ask ArgoCD to manually sync the changes that I'm putting together, okay? And then here, it's a Git repository, so I put it here. And, you know, the head, and then I go into Kubernetes. You can keep reading through the form. This form is actually huge. Like if you have a Helm chart instead of simple YAML files, you will regret to be alive because you need to fill like 20 different video forms. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this, if it works. Alright, cluster URL. Yeah, well, that one thing is in ArgoCD you can manage multiple clusters in one installation. So right now I have only configured my cluster because I only have one cluster. But you can configure many clusters. Namespace default, and now create. That is creating the application. So this is telling me now that ArgoCD has gone into Git, has pulled the latest version, and it's telling me you have something here called dotCon. You have one service called Node. I know it's a service because it says here SBC, and a deployment which is called Node deployment. Okay? You can go here and see exactly what's happening, what's going on. So this service, it's called Node, and this deployment, it's called Node deployment. If I go back to ArgoCD, it's saying that. And this is telling me this is a little box which is missing and out of sync. That means my cluster at the moment is not running anything. So it's just running, the normal ArgoCD things. Now I'm going to go and tell to ArgoCD, okay, I know what I'm doing, so sync this. And you have another bazillion configuration here, which many of them don't make any sense. But because I'm a codeboy, I will hit synchronize, and it's going to get everything created here in my cluster. Okay? Right now, what's happening is, if I run again my pods, I can see how in the default namespace I have 3 pods running, which is what my configuration says. Okay? If I go into the deployment, I have 3 replicas. Now, what happens if I change this? Changes. Okay, I'm asking now, I want to run 27 containers, 27 pods out of my deployment. ArgoCD, at some point, is going to realize about that, but for some reason it takes forever. So I'm just going to refresh. And it's telling me these resources out of sync. There are changes in GitHub that you don't have reflected in your cluster. So if you go in, you can go and see what's out of sync. So you see the manifest of your deployments, and you can see here what changed.
Right.
So your Git changed, and now you have 27 replicas instead of 3. Do you want to deploy this or not? So what you do is you go and click on sync, and then what's happening now is that my cluster is creating 27 replicas of my pods, and you can see that here. Right? Now, interesting question. Remember when we were talking about debugging something at 4 a.m. in the morning? How do you do that? Like, if you want to see what errors the pods are emitting or why they are not being created or something like that, so you need to go into kubectl, get a terminal, and so on. Most of the companies won't allow you to get a terminal into a production server, but the companies will allow you to port forward into a production server, which you actually can. So you can go into a pod, like this one, and then you can do things like, I want to see the events. So what happened with my pod since it was started? So it got created, the image got pulled, got started, and things like that. What are the logs of my container? Okay, so what's going on inside my container? And all that, it's just one click away from where you are. I think there is a way to get a terminal into the container, but I'm not sure what it is even. So yeah, let's don't try to flap around that. And now what I want to do is, because this is probably putting a lot of pressure on my computer, I'm going to edit this back to true, which is more normal. And if I go back into ArgoCD, click on refresh, I can see that it has picked up the changes back into 2 pods. Hit sync. And now what's happening is it's killing all the pods that were alive that we don't need anymore. Okay? As you can see, I haven't coded a single line. It's all controlled by Git. Can you imagine a big company having multiple applications like this?
Yes.
And somebody in the change board saying, this application is changing, what are the changes? These are the changes. And then you have a stack trace of what's going on, what are you changing in your configuration, what you want to deploy, what you want to change, things like that. So that's something that we see. But what are we missing here? Come on. we just been to talk about it. What are we missing in this cluster at the moment?
Health checks.
Health checks. That's a good one. We are missing monitoring, okay? We are missing all the things that you need to use to look into your cluster. So if you work with Kubernetes, what will you use to monitor a Kubernetes cluster? Prometheus. Prometheus, yeah? Okay, so you would like to deploy Prometheus in a cluster like this one, right? It's something that you probably don't even think of not doing, just not deploying Prometheus. And Prometheus itself, it's a CNF Clone Native Foundation project, and it has a Helm chart that is maintained. So what we can do is we can go into the official sources of Prometheus, and then we are going to come here and create a new app. This app is going to call Prometheus, So we are going to deploy it in default, whatever that means. The sync policy is going to be automatic because I feel adventurous with my monitoring system. It's going to be a Helm chart, and the repository is here. So what I do now is I put the repository where it is. And this is actually doing discovery of which Helm charts are available in this repository. So I'm telling, I want to deploy just Prometheus. And the version I want is the last one, 22.6.2. So I want it in my cluster, and I want it in a namespace called Prometheus. These are all the Helm values, okay? This is all the things that you can override in Prometheus. You don't need to do it now, you can come back later. But at the end of the day, what happens is you can configure everything that you will configure in a normal deployment. From here, it's saved in ArgoCD, and every time you update the Helm chart, it's gonna be reapplied. So blah 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 blah. I'm not great at reading, so I'm gonna pass this. Click on create, and then what's happening now is Prometheus is being synced at the moment. It's like it has discovered, it has to create all these things, and at the moment it hasn't deployed anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell to sync, but there's gonna be a problem. Can you guess what the problem is?
You don't have the namespace.
Ooh, that was a good one. Okay? So I don't have the namespace Prometheus. Okay, I need to create the namespace Prometheus. And now, possibly it takes like a few minutes or a few seconds because I set them sync manual. Let's see now. Oh, it's already syncing, so leave it there for a second. Aside from Prometheus, what else do you miss in a cluster? Like, how do you get the data out of Prometheus? You just go into the interface and query Prometheus, but that's terrible, right? You just want Grafana.
Log aggregation.
Sorry?
Log aggregation.
Log aggregation, low-key. So, same, you go into Grafana. You can add your repository. You see, Prometheus is not synced. I will come back to that in a second. Project name is default. Application name is Grafana. Sync policy is manual. I don't feel that adventurous on this one. It's a Helm chart. And then I get here Grafana. And I'll come back to Loki in a second. And you can pick the version. All these are official versions that, you know, like Grafana is publishing. In my local cluster, and in the default namespace, just to load this up, saying like you could lose your life to customizing these values, so you don't want to do that. Click on create, and right now what's happening is because I selected manual sync, it's waiting for me to say go and sync. So you click here to sync, and right now I have Grafana deployed in my cluster. So in like about 10 minutes, we got one application deployed, we got Prometheus deployed, and we got Grafana deployed working. Now, I can see that Prometheus is doing some funky things, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Like, how do I know something is going wrong? Right now, if I port forward into Prometheus, I can see it. I can see, you know, the interface, everything is working fine. But what's going on? Why is this progressing? Well, if you go in, the node exporter, it's actually failing. For some reason. The reason is I'm using Docker Desktop and it's missing some of the things that that needs to run. So we don't really can run the node exporter here. That's okay, we will have everything else, as you can see, but we won't have metrics about the node, which is something that for a demo we can deal with.
So what am I supposed to do for the rest of the month?
Sorry?
What am I supposed to do for the rest of the month?
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is, I was talking about controlling your cluster from Git, and we've done that for my applications. But all these states, all these applications, remember I was talking to you about, we'll come back to that in a second. In reality, what happens is ArgoCD has customized my Kubernetes cluster, and I have a new resource called application. Okay? Let me show you that. So remember I deployed 3 different applications in my cluster. dotCon, which is synced and is healthy. So that means it has fully deployed. Grafana, it's synced and is healthy. And Prometheus, it's synced and is progressing because the node exporter is failing. These things are actually Kubernetes YAMLs. So I could come here and I get back a huge YAML. Well, YAML is terrible, but especially bad when you take it from Iron cluster because it adds all the runtime information in the YAML. We are not interested in many of these things, we are interested in the spec and things like that. So, this. So this is the configuration that I created through the UI. It creates a resource that ArgoCD is watching, and then what happens is when this changes, ArgoCD goes and executes the changes. So I don't need to worry about that. So what I could do is I could save this in a Git repository, in a health chart, add it to ArgoCD, and that's a button called the app of apps. So I deploy one application that deploys all my other applications, and that's how you could manage huge systems with just one person and time for coffee.
Sorry, David, is the application an ArgoCD specific CRD?
It is, yes. Like if you see QCTL get CRD, you can see applications.argoproj.io. So it's namespace to Argo. So it is specific to Argo users. There is something else called, I don't remember, I think it's Flux, which is another GitHub system, which I never use. But it has another thing similar to application. So yeah. And then, yeah, so we have 4 applications. I mean, I could show you that they work, but I think you believe me, right? If you want, I can put forward and you can see how Grafana interacts with Kubernetes and things like that, but yeah, don't consume the time. And after that, I'm done. So that was quicker than expected, but yeah. Do you have any questions? Something good. That's my QR code for LinkedIn. I work for a company called Manaka. We're so cool. So, you know, add me to LinkedIn and ask me a question. I'll share the slides later on, so don't worry. Any questions? Yeah.
Quite a few. Are you using ArgoCD on a daily basis?
I was up to 2 years ago, yes. I used it for like about 3 years. I used the alpha version.
Have you used application sets?
Sorry, application what?
Have you used application sets in the past?
Application sets.
I did.
No.
You could ask me.
Application sets. I was looking for some close.
I have to look into that,
But
but
also avoid.
yeah.
It's the new app of apps.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. The biggest problem I have with ArgoCD is that everything is great and green and super productive until something goes wrong. And you are in an alpha version of ArgoCD in a customer and you don't know what to do. So that was my biggest problem with ArgoCD. But yeah, I have to look into applications that I haven't looked into it. So yeah. More questions? Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about when running ArgoCD at a production cluster? Would you share the same Kubernetes cluster, or would it be better to deploy the application there and the ArgoCD itself cluster?
I am a big fan of having one instance of ArgoCD per cluster. Like you deploy your ArgoCD in your QA cluster, ArgoCD in your production cluster, and ArgoCD in your dev cluster.
So ArgoCD is a control plane, it's actually sitting inside the cluster
Yeah.
and it is.
Yeah. I can tell you, like, I mean, I don't know if you have kids, but when you have slept for 2 hours in a day for 2 months, confusing production with QA is a lot easier than what it looks like. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of separation, like, especially if you work in a big company. Like, one of the requirements will be your production access is limited to as minimum as possible, whereas your QA and dev access can be limited to, whatever the numbers are. I've seen people being very successful in having one instance of ArgoCD, but it's your single point of failure. So
That would be more of a push than having a different instance per cluster. Would be more of a pull, right?
it would actually be easier, but for one of the problems, for example, your QA environment usually doesn't have access to production. So if you are configuring ArgoCD to log in from Active Directory or from LDAP or something like that, chances are your QA cluster won't have access to the production one. And if you deploy dev and QA from production, you'll do that. So no, I'm a big fan of separating.
So, as part of your GitOps, right, how do you, if you have a separate environment, say separate Argo for, staging and production, how does Git work its way into that?
Well,
is it part of having multiple branches that you're pulling from? Or?
No. What you have is one branch, which is your release branch,
Yeah.
master branch, main branch, call it whatever you want. It's a branch which is protected. You don't let anybody mess with that branch. And whatever goes there goes into QA. If you need a new version, push into that branch, goes into QA. If you need a new version, push in that branch, goes into QA. And then once you're happy, your ArgoCD production cluster will be out of sync. But when you sync, it will sync to the latest version that is in QA. That's all. But you have multiple Argo instances handing off the same branch.
So you do have to have like that very quick move from QA to production.
No, it can stay there for whatever.
But
So,
like if you sync before, so imagine there's 2 different teams that are working on something similar, right? One thing has to stay in QA for a bit, another one needs to go into production today.
only merge into the release branch whatever is supposed to go out. If it's not supposed to go out, it doesn't get close to a release branch.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the smoke of the fire that is burning in the background.
Does that model not remove some of the automation, especially around automatic syncing? Kind of like requires a developer to step in for something that's mostly userless CI/CD?
The work I've done in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, it actually always required me to have a human pushing the button, like always. So I am not a big fan of automatic syncing. You've seen how easy it is to set up, like, Grafana, Prometheus, and an application. So you save a lot of time. We've set up a decent delivery pipeline here in about 7 minutes. So having somebody that goes and pushes a button to get an application out, it's even a healthy thing in my opinion. Like when you go into a big company, they will ask you to produce an evidence that you are changing the system. The evidence will be on the form of everybody loves service now, change request. And then once you do the change request, like you push the button and you specify which Git commit you are syncing into production. And then if you create a new commit in the release branch, it's going to be out of sync, but your last sync point will be the commit that shows up in the change request, which has been indexed in the company's records for all of you.
As part of our larger components.
That's okay.
Like 100 microservices, one model that
Yeah.
200 engineers work on, so we don't have the option of everybody being allowed to click that sync button.
No, but you don't have everybody. Like you have, maybe
We also don't want an owner.
Yeah.
I don't want to own that one.
that's the problem. It's like who presses the button? One thing about this is that it's very easy to roll back to a previous version. You just go into Git, push the commit that you want into the head of the branch, sync again, and you're back into the previous version. So that's the thing. So you can roll back in seconds. I can show you roll if you want.
No, there's also the built-in rollback feature in our itself, so you don't have to go to
Nobody should be using that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, I've experimented quite a bit with the suite of Argo, so Argo workflows, Argo events, and obviously ArgoCD. I'd be interested if anybody here has sort of played around with these in the context of AWS, and so if you're putting this out into an EKS cluster,
Yeah.
can it work well with a sort of scale to zero type model where it'll fire up nodes as they need them and whatnot?
Yeah, well, what happens here when you have something like this is it doesn't really mess with the scaling. So your ArgoCD will go into EKS, which is the managed version of Kubernetes for AWS. And it's gonna send a message to EKS, it's gonna send I want to deploy 200 containers of my application number 1. And then what's gonna happen is your cluster only has space for 100 containers. So your cluster autoscaler, Carpenter or cluster autoscaler itself, is gonna look into how many containers more do I need to schedule, 100. It's gonna go into the configuration of your node tools, pull the most appropriate one, create the instances, and then your containers will be scheduled. ArgoCD doesn't care about that. ArgoCD's mission finishes when the resources are deployed in Kubernetes. Then how do you manage those resources? It's all on the autoscaler and inside the cluster. So ArgoCD, like I can go now and say, for example, in my application, I want 200 containers. My computer probably won't be able to handle that, I hope. And some of them will be on pending for a long time. Okay? I think I can see here. If this cluster had ability to auto-scale, what happens is my deployment will create 200 containers. The scheduler will say, I don't have space for 200 containers, which is what's happening now. It's struggling, probably you will even shut down. And then the autoscaler will see that there are pods on pending state, and it will go pick up the pending state pods, make numbers, go into AWS, and say, hey, I need this machine. And then it will split the machine, and your containers will be scheduled. But ArgoCD doesn't mess with that. ArgoCD will tell you for a while, like it's happening here, your pods are in pending state. Your pods are not actually just fried my computer. So I hope you don't have too many questions more. But yeah, like it's reporting that these pods are pending. They are not schedulable because my computer is at the moment probably trying to breathe. But that's another thing. Like I work in a place where the calculations will come and go like this. So we will actually have this, and then you schedule a job that will take 4 or 5 hours. The configuration on the pod labels and node affinity will tell to the autoscaler, I need a GPU and I need 200 gigabytes of RAM. The autoscaler will give to the pod a machine. The pod will be scheduled on the machine, work for 4 or 5 hours, finishes, the pod finishes. Nobody else gets scheduled in that machine, and then the autoscaler will go and say, your machine is not used anymore, shut it down, and then recycle the resources. But ArgoCD has something to do with that. I think I killed my computer, but that's okay. Yeah.
So currently I'm managing 6 different EKS clusters. So I have ArgoCD with 6 of them.
Yeah.
So even talking about the cluster autoscaler, I do not use cluster autoscaler anymore. I'm using Carpenter.
Yeah.
If you have EKS, use Carpenter. Cluster autoscaler is just fast.
Yeah.
Because Carpenter is much faster and it's much reliable to cluster autoscaler. So
Yeah.
just forget about it. So I'm using the concept that our colleagues say that's app of apps.
Yeah.
So how I'm dealing with that? So I get a Git repository with a lot of Helm charts that I created with the application manifest, and each folder for each cluster. So, for example, I have 1 dev cluster and 5 production clusters. So if I need to update an application that is in dev, I just go to the folder that is the dev cluster. I just change the values file or change the chart version. If it's okay on dev, it just applies to each production cluster in a scale. So this is the strategy I'm using for deploying our applications in dev and prod. I didn't find any other solution that is working. That I never tried application sets. I don't know how good they are, but there is another option besides that.
Do you have any problems with that?
Yeah, I don't have any problems, but I'm just looking for improvements, so.
Don't fix what's wrong broken.
It's like when they implemented carpenter error clusters, so the difference was amazing. I don't need to rely on magic groups anymore, so.
I'd say you are in the perfect setup, to be honest, because you seem very comfortable with it, and you're looking for improving it, probably because it's working too well that it's not giving you many problems. I'm like I use Postman copying and pasting the servers. I don't use variables, and some of my colleagues are going bananas with that because they see me doing something that's like copy and paste, and I'm like, well, that's how it works for me. So I will not change that, to be honest. I think I will approach that way. I think it's a sensible approach. You are saving a lot of time by being able to see things like that, and you are getting a lot of visibility into what's going on. So it's not broken, don't fix it. More questions?
Thank you for nice workshop and demo. And I'm happy that the project on conference because this key will start something new. But just one small notice. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that if you're struggling with rolling back, software, queues, schemes, etc. But I can understand that the scope of this small presentation can cover that. But again, so Argo is not resolving that. You still need to be aware about
Well, it does if you are smart in your hand charts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what I usually do is when you are at this level of automation, you want your migrations and your schemas being automated. But you also want to be able to do a two-step deployment. So when you do a change in a database, you never do a breaking change. You do a change, you have two versions of your app which work in the same change, then do another one. Like remove the compatibility with the first version, but then you still have two versions that work. So if you have to roll back, you always can come back. That has a name, I don't remember, but it's playing it safe. So that's how I would do it. All the message queues, all the data state version. Like when you have a schema for a message in a queue, you always put a field which is version 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And your application has a matrix of which versions can process. The version that cannot be processed goes into a dedicated queue, and then somebody else will process that. But other than that, the database is just a big problem. Yes, don't change the database. Add more tables.
Thanks.
So we're done.
That was great, man. Thanks for sticking around for so long. For the patient queue who have stayed, they need to enjoy that because there's something there. But we want to do something a little bit different for our meetups, right? So if everyone kind of look under their chairs, there's going to be something stuck to that, and there are prizes attached underneath the chairs. Woo! And the free chairs are your prizes, put it that way. So it'll be stuck underneath the bottom of what you get. And then if you want to collect any of that stuff, you go back to the right. You don't have to drop your CDs when you give the stuff. Okay, we're not thank you. It's cool for not everyone will have a present, but it's definitely free. There should be 37. We didn't have any more than that. Guys, yet again, Dave, Darren, thank you so much. We got more. If anyone's going to drink after, we're going to the Lombard across the street. If not,